Hi, good afternoon. I am Angela Mark P. Walag, and I'm happy to be with you this afternoon to quickly share some of my personal experiences in publishing research outputs in legitimate scientific outlets. This is an important topic for both academics and teaching practitioners, as dissemination of our research results is an integral component of the research cycle. As such, I would like my sharing to revolve around a review of different journal publications, spotting predatory journals and major indexing companies. I will also be sharing my rule of thumb when selecting which journals to submit. And finally, I will also be sharing some journals that I have experience with. There are three major journal types: the traditional journal, scholarly open access, and the predatory open access. Traditional journals are different from open access journals mainly on who pays for the publication of journals. For traditional journals, authors do not pay article processing charges to publish their work. Instead, readers and subscribers are the ones paying to access your work. This can be one time for specific papers or annually subscribed to a journal. Open access journals, on the other hand, have a different kind of arrangement. In this type, authors are the ones paying the APC, so readers and subscribers can freely access their work. One advantage of OA journals is that you have more reach and visibility. Both scholarly and predatory OA journals have comparable APCs. What makes the difference between the two OAs are: number one, the board member quality for both traditional and scholarly OA are reputable scientists, while for predatory, they're often fictitious or names used without permission. The peer review process also significantly differs. For predatory journals, no meaningful peer review is conducted. Papers are published in just hours or days after submitting. The review time, although, is not a sole indicator of quality of peer review, but it can be used as one gauge. Another thing we need to look out is that legitimate journals often do not solicit submissions from authors. Instead, they just announce official submission time. Predatory journals also publish fabricated impact factors which do not come from legitimate indexing companies. I mentioned earlier that one criteria you can use to check whether the journal is predatory or not is the time it takes to publish your paper from submission. In most cases, when you submit your paper, the journal editor checks whether it meets their basic criteria. This takes around 1 to 7 days. When it does not pass, the paper is returned to you. If it passes, the chief editor then identifies reviewers to conduct the peer review process. Identification of reviewer takes around 1 to 2 weeks, while the actual review process ranges from 1 to 2 months depending on which journal you are submitting. This time alone, it is impossible to publish your paper in a week's time. You would see that the science of peer review process is time consuming. Therefore, meaningful peer review takes time. Here are the 5 big companies controlling academic publishing: Springer, Taylor and Francis, Elsevier, Wiley and Sons, and Sage. These publishing houses are what is considered as the gold standard in academic publications. This doesn't mean that if you have published in other journals aside from these, that your work doesn't matter. What is important is we avoid predatory journals. How do we know if journals are predatory? We'll get to it in a short while. The journals I have mentioned earlier, or the publication companies I have mentioned earlier, have also their own artificial intelligence to help you select the most appropriate journal to submit. You can paste the title and the abstract of your paper, and these AI will suggest appropriate journals for you. This one is from Elsevier or Science Direct, while this one is from Springer. Jeffrey Bayal, a retired librarian and associate professor from the University of Colorado, compiled a list of potential predatory journals and publishers. This database can be accessed freely and can be used by beginning researchers such as you as a guide on which journal to avoid. You can check whether the journals or publishers are considered as potentially predatory or not. The link of the database is also shown in the slide. This figure, on the other hand, also illustrates the difference between traditional, scholarly open access and predatory open access journals, which I have also mentioned in the previous slides. Here is an example of a paper solicitation from dubious journals. First, this email is a send to all email, not specific to a certain research scholar with a known research track record. Second, grammatical errors are too obvious to note. Notice also the scope of the journal. You would observe that the journal is on communication, yet it accepts papers from archaeology, engineering, business, sports, and etc. This seems to be a one-size-fits-all journal. Another red flag is that it publishes all kinds of paper, even your whole thesis papers. The major red flag here is that the journal promises fast and easy publishing process, while at the same time it is a high-level peer review process. Fast will never equate to high quality in terms of peer reviewing. They also promise approval within a week, which is highly impossible if there is a meaningful peer review process. In addition, they also mention a maximum indexing system, yet they did not identify the indexing bodies. Indexation of a journal reflects scientific quality, and we need to be careful when journals promise indexing. As such, we also need to familiarize ourselves with indexing companies to help us identify legitimate scientific outlets. Here are some reputable indexing companies you can refer to. You can check the journal titles and their ISSNs in their respective databases to validate their claims. We have Clarivate Analytics, or formerly the Thomson Reuters or ISI. We have Scopus, ASEAN Citation Index, and the newly created AGPCI of the LSU. As a gold standard, academics often use Scopus and Clarivate to determine quality. They also rank journals based on citation reports. You can access them using the links provided. Finally, I would also like to share my own rule of thumb when checking out the legitimacy of research journals. Number one, they should be indexed by at least Google Scholar, as it helps increase your reach and your visibility. But of course, we should never settle for less and go for Scopus or Clarivate indexing. Second, the journal should be specialized and not multidisciplinary. Publishing in a specialized journal allows you to contribute to the existing dialogue and debate about your topic with other researchers of the same field. This also ensures that your research reaches those who study the same field as yours. Next is the journal should be published by a university or a known professional organization. This ensures that the journal is published by a truly existing academic body and not just any other organization that is therefore making an income out of your hard work in finishing your research. Most of these journals are also free. You may also check out your idol researchers or the researchers who is a big name in your research field. Where do they publish? So kindly check out their profiles and look for journals which they usually submit. This will also give you an idea which journals are legitimate. Next, check out the review period. A legitimate journal may range from 3 months to 1 year of review period. Although there are also journals with good quality that publishes work monthly. Trust your gut feeling about the review process, and the review timeline. Another thing to consider is their publication charge. Most free and open access journals are legitimate. Although there is no fast rule on APCs, you just ensure that the APC is within your budget, or your university or your academic institution supports publication in these kinds of journals. You can also check the editorial board members of the journal. Are they legit scientists in your field or no? Or do you know someone in your research field serving as an editorial board member in that journal? Then that is one of your key factor in identifying whether the journal is legitimate or not. Or you can also check out the editorial board, whether they're just using the names of some scientists as without their permission. This can also be a red flag in many journals. Finally, I also use my reference list as my list of potential journals to submit. Check out which journal you cite most, and most likely your paper is appropriate there. Finally, I would also like to share some journals I have personal experience with as an author, reviewer, and editorial board member. I can attest to the legitimacy of these outlets. You have there the International Journal of Instruction. The review turnaround is around 3 to 6 months, with their APC at around 300 Swiss francs. Then you have the International Journal of Innovation in Science and Mathematics Education. The review turnaround is also around 3 to 6 months. They publish freely. The Journal of Turkish Science Education, this is a Q1 journal. They have a review turnaround between 3 to 9 months. The Journal of Innovations in Teaching and Learning, this is published by the USTP College of Science and Technology Education. The review turnaround is 2 to 3 months with a publication fee of $190. You also have Canadian Journal of Family and Youth, which also part of the scope is youth education, which can also be a good outlet to submit your work. The review turnaround is 6 to 12 months. It's also free, and I think it's published by the University of Alberta. Curriculum and Teaching is also from Australia. No? They publish journals ranging from different curriculum initiatives and also teaching practices. Review turnaround is around 3 to 5 months. They have free publication fee. Canadian Journal of Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education. I think this is published by Springer. 3 to 5 months review turnaround, and it's also free. Education Sciences, I serve as a peer reviewer in this journal. It's published by MDPI. The review to publication turnaround is between 2 to 3 months, and they have about 1,400 Swiss francs as publication fee. And finally, this Australian Journal of Teacher Education, which is reviewed around 3 to 5 months, and it's free. Before submitting to different journals, ensure that your paper falls within these two categories. Does your paper advances, not repeats, knowledge and understanding in a certain field? Is it novel? Or does your paper effectively present an original, relevant, significant contributions to the research literature? Does it fill a gap in our current understanding of a certain phenomena? If your answer in the previous slide earlier was yes, then let's take a look at now, what do legitimate journals look for in a submission? The first one is originality. Does the paper show original thought, innovative idea, or does it provide a different approach to our understanding of a certain phenomena? Does the paper extend what is known in a certain field? Does it provide new insights to further our understanding of a certain variable? Next is the validity and reliability of the methods used. Is it sound, rigorous, scientific, repeatable, and ethical? Does the paper show logical progression of arguments? Is it clear what the authors are trying to say? Does the paper identify the research gap and describes how it would fill this gap? Does it have practical applications beyond the scope of research? Does the reference cited relevant or even recent? Does the paper follow the guidelines and scope of the journal? If your answer is yes to all of these questions, then submit your paper now. It has a very high chance of getting accepted in legitimate indexed journals. Thank you, and I'm now open for your questions.